All of these flagship smartphones have incredible camera systems, but that doesn't really matter if they don't have the battery life to back it up. So today we'll be comparing the Xiaomi 14, Xiaomi 14 Ultra, Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, Honor Magic 6 Pro, OnePlus 12, Vivo X100 Pro, and iPhone 15 Pro Max in this extremely detailed 100 to 0% battery life drain test. All phones have been set to the exact same brightness levels using a LUX Meter. They are all sitting on 100% battery health. They have all been updated to their latest available software updates. They're all SIM-free and only connected via Wi-Fi. They're all running at 1 to 120 Hz screen refresh rates since they all have LTPO displays, and they have all been set to their native screen resolutions. Which one of these incredible flagship smartphones has what it takes to come out on top? This is TechNick, and without further ado, let's find out. Before we get things going, it's worth making sure that each device is sitting at 100%, and they all indeed are, since they've been plugged in charge for a couple hours prior to the test. We'll be using an infrared heat gun to measure each phone's temperature between each time interval, that being clocked at every 30 minutes. And since they're all been charging for a while now, we can't really compare the battery drain temperatures yet. But if you are interested to know, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is the hottest while charging, while the iPhone is the coolest. Now, unplugging each device from left to right and hitting start on the start timer phone on the right hand side, we'll be jumping into our first app, that being Google Chrome. Now, in case you guys were wondering, I know it is pretty overwhelming here, so we do have the time interval at the top right hand corner, like I said, clocked in at every 30 minutes, and next to that, above each device, below the branding of each device, we do have the current percentage in relation to that interval, and below that we have the current temperatures. We'll get to peak later and intervals later, well, pretty much from now, since we just hit that 30-minute mark interval now, and we have 99% on the Xiaomi 14 and Xiaomi 14 Ultra, 98% on the S24 Ultra, and 100% on the rest after 30 minutes of draining, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, if you guys are a bit rusty on specs, we do have the necessary specs at the bottom of each device, and all the way at the bottom right hand corner we do have the current app. We're currently in Spotify playing some music. I'm actually playing music on my PC, and I'm just on all the phones showing all the fancy pictures and video renders over there. Now, after the 1 hour mark interval, as you can see at the top right hand corner, we have 96% on both Xiaomi devices. 1% below that is the S24 Ultra on 95%, 97% on the Honor Magic 6 Pro, which is just 1% behind that of the Vivo and iPhone, and taking the lead here is 100% on the OnePlus 12. Still 100% after 1 hour, and now we're currently rocking through Shazam on auto, and we're screen recording as well, so their temperatures should slightly increase over here. So after the hour 30-minute mark interval, we have 89% on the Xiaomi 14, so the little brother of the 14 Ultra is actually beating it, and that is matching the S24 Ultra, which has a significantly larger screen and battery. 94% on the Honor Magic 6 Pro, which is matching the Vivo and iPhone now, and the leader is still the OnePlus 12 with 95%. Now, just to let you guys know, I did have the AC set to 16 degrees hours before the test and throughout the entire test. All of these devices are indeed the global variants. And yes, the Honor Magic 6 Pro is the one here with the largest battery, that being 5,600 milliamp hours. But the reason for that is because it is the only device here with a silicon carbon battery, which means that they don't have to physically increase the size of the battery. They can actually make it smaller, but they can increase the capacity. Something that I wish and I really hope that all other flagship devices from all of these companies adapt in the future, so that they can keep the same nice slim phones and have a larger capacity. Hopefully we'll actually be able to see Apple pop in a higher than 5,000 milliamp hour battery cell within their device if they decide to go the silicon carbon route. Now, all of these chipsets are manufactured by TSMC, the chipsets found inside these devices. All of them are running at 4 nanometer, except for the iPhone, which has a 3 nanometer node over here. And the Galaxy S24 Ultra is running a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy, so it has a slightly higher main core clock, sitting at 3.4 gigahertz, instead of the usual 3.3 gigahertz that you see on all the other Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 powered smartphones over here. Now, I know what you guys are thinking from the start of the test when I was showing screen resolutions. They have all been set to native screen res, but just to let you guys know, I have done more than 30 battery drain tests in the past 4 years, and more often than not, sitting at native screen res actually yields a higher screen on time. Now, we are sitting at a 3 hour 30-minute mark interval, as you can see top right hand corner, 74% on the Xiaomi 14, which is 2% ahead of its bigger brother, the 14 Ultra at 72%, 77% on the S24 Ultra, which is below all the phones on the right hand side, and the Honor Magic 6 Pro is currently in the lead with 82% and the rest of them at 81%. Now, I'm not really surprised by this, since the Honor Magic 5 Pro last year was the best flagship, remember, flagship Android device on my channel in terms of battery drain. It even came over and above the iPhone 14 Pro Max last year. So I'm really interested to see what happens here, since the Vivo X100 Pro seriously impressed me in my last battery drain test, almost edging through and past the iPhone 15 Pro Max with over 10 hours of screen on time. So hopefully it holds that this time, and it's going to be a pretty good battle between these two Android flagships, that being the OnMagic 6 Pro and Vivo X100 Pro. But if the Samsung has improved battery efficiency with a software update, then it might be right up there with them. Now the OnePlus 12 is actually the cheapest device here, so the fact that it's actually sitting on par with the Vivo and the iPhone, that are both much more expensive devices and even better than that of the S24 Ultra, and it's cheaper, is impressive to say the least. But the winner here so far is the OnMagic 6 Pro with 75% after that 4.5 hour interval. Now we do have the Xiaomi 14 Ultra being the hottest in the last interval and the hottest peak, with the iPhone being the coolest in the last interval and the coolest peak. After the 5-hour mark interval, we have 53% on the Xiaomi 14, now 3% ahead of its bigger brother, the 14 Ultra. Very disappointed here from the 14 Ultra. 59% on the S24 Ultra, which is once again behind the phones on the right, but not too far off the OnePlus and the Vivo. The OnMagic 6 Pro is still a bit ahead of the iPhone, sitting at 64% as opposed to 63%. Now we are currentally running through benchmarks, and it's not because I'm trying to drain the phones quicker, it's honestly just because I don't have multiple hands, well I guess you could say 3.5 sets of hands to be able to play games on all of these devices at the same time. So I use benchmarks to simulate high performance gaming, and I only do it for an hour, and usually these tests go on for over 9, over 10 hours. So it's only for an hour just to seriously stress out those CPUs. And Xiaomi has been pretty good recently with overheating, but the Xiaomi 14 Ultra overheated twice in 3D Mark and has overheated now once in GFX Bench. So I'm not quite sure the new HyperOS software is truly optimized for the new Snapdragon chipset, but the Xiaomi 14 tends to differ over here, since that did not overheat and it's a smaller device with the same chipset made by the same brand, but it still got pretty hot. So 68 degrees on the Xiaomi 14 as opposed to 67.3 on the regular 14 Ultra as opposed to the regular 14. And the coolest over here so far is the iPhone 15 Pro Max with 50 degrees Celsius, well 50.5, that last interval and its peak temperature as well. 6 hours and 30-minute mark interval over here. The Xiaomi's are well below 20% now, 14% on the Xiaomi 14 and 3% below that the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. Again, much bigger phone, much more expensive, worse battery, screen on time. The S24 Ultra 35%, which is now ahead of the OnePlus 12 and the Vivo X100 Pro after all those benchmarks. And the OnMagic 6 Pro is sitting at 41%, still ahead of the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now 37%, still ahead of the iPhone 15 Pro Max at that 7-hour mark interval. 10% on the Xiaomi 14, which is now 4% ahead of the 6% on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. So which one is going to last longer over here? And Xiaomi's typically get over 7 hours, which I do consider great battery life. 6 hours is good, 7 hours is great, 8 hours is incredible, and there we go, 7 hours, 23 minutes. The Xiaomi actually went into hibernation mode over there at 1%. As soon as you hit exit, it kills the phone. So 7 hours, 23 minutes on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, which is actually the exact same time I got on the Xiaomi 13 Ultra last year. And that was using the older MIUI 14 software. So optimization, efficiency, even with the new chipset, I'm not quite sure Xiaomi are improving battery life over here, especially considering its little brother, the Xiaomi 14, has actually lasted longer and made it to the 7-hour, 41-minute mark. And that is, to me, very impressive for a compact phone. So for the flagship bigger brother 14 Ultra, I'm a little bit disappointed, but for the more compact designed Xiaomi 14, I'm actually rather impressed, since it almost made it to that 8-hour mark interval, and it did have a significantly better milliamp hour per minute reading, since it has a smaller battery and lasted for longer. 8 hours down the road, the 5 phones on the right hand side are still going. 8 hours is incredible battery life over here. 22% on the S24 Ultra, 15% on the OnePlus, 16% ahead of that is the Vivo, ahead of that is the iPhone with 24%, and ahead of all of them is the OnMagic 6 Pro with 28%. Currently in Shazam over here, and we're nearing that 8-hour, 30-minute mark. It would be amazing to see these phones reach 9 hours, which is really rare in terms of screen on time for flagships these days, though they are improving year after year. 8 hours 30 minutes, we now have 8% on the OnePlus 12, which is trailing the pack here. Not far ahead of it is the Vivo with 11%. Then we have the Samsung, then the iPhone, then still on top is the OnMagic 6 Pro, and we're now nearing that 9-hour mark interval. Now, when I was recording video with the selfie and main cams earlier, I do keep it consistent with all my previous battery drain tests, so that 1080p 30 fps for selfie video recording, 4K 30 fps for main video recording, even though they can definitely surpass that in 2024. But I like it so that you guys can compare these results to all other smartphones that have undergone the same exact test on my channel. And yes, I do keep all apps and all screen brightnesses exactly the same so that you can compare them to all other battery drain tests on my channel, though you cannot compare them to other channels. Well, I mean, I guess you could, but it won't be very accurate since the different channels use different apps and different brightness levels, so on and so forth. The OnePlus 12 just knocked off 9 hours and 27 minutes, which is absolutely incredible. Great job, OnePlus. You are the cheapest device here and you had an incredible milliamp hour per minute reading. 9 hour, 30 minute mark interval. The Samsung and Vivo just barely made it to that point. 9% left on the iPhone, and quite a bit ahead of that is the Honor Magic 6 Pro sitting at 15%, which is impressive to say the least. Now, the Samsung just knocked off 9 hours and 36 minutes, which is still impressive. A little bit lower screen on time compared to the first time I tested it out 3 months ago, but much better milliamp hour per minute reading as opposed to the OnePlus and all other devices over here. Not long after that, the Vivo knocked off with 9 hours and 45 minutes, and it actually has a worse milliamp hour per minute reading as opposed to the Samsung, since the Samsung has a smaller 5000 milliamp hour battery as opposed to the OnePlus and Vivo's 5400 milliamp hour cells. The iPhone made it to 10 hours, which we have seen a couple times before in the past, but the Honor made it to 10 hours. The first I've actually seen from an Honor flagship make it to 10 hours and still have more percent in the tank than the iPhone does, 7% as opposed to 3%. Which one is going to make it to 10 hours, 30 minutes? Can they make it to 11 hours? I'm not quite sure. Let's see what's about to happen. But the iPhone calls it quits and says, I can't handle this heat coming from the Magic. And it clocked off at 10 hours and 24 minutes, which is absolutely incredible screen on time. But something you literally never ever see and is very unheard of is an Honor phone reaching 10 hours, 30 minutes, and it's still going with 2%. And it doesn't have the worst peak temperature. The worst is the Xiaomi, but it's not too far off it. iPhones always kind of keep it at around 50 degrees Celsius, which is what you want to see when it's seriously overheating and seriously stressing out its CPU and battery. But we are sitting at 11 hours on the Honor Magic 6 Pro. Pretty much a milestone for Android flagships going into this year, and it knocked off there 11 hours and 3 minutes. Yes, it may have a bigger battery than the rest of the devices here, but a win is a win, and Honor are looking at technology and innovation with silicon carbon batteries, something that these other devices will have to adapt if they want to compete. 7th place over here, we have the Xiaomi 14 Ultra with a rather large 5000 milliamp hour battery, 7 hours and 23 minutes of screen on time. Slightly disappointing considering it was the same as its predecessor. Xiaomi 14 actually quite impressed me over here, placing 6th ahead of its big brother with 7 hours and 41 minutes of screen on time and the second smallest battery of all 7 devices over here. 5th place, we have the OnePlus 12 with 9 hours and 27 minutes, a huge leap over the Xiaomi's, and it really did impress me over here. And in 4th place, we have the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, not far ahead of the OnePlus, but it does have a slightly smaller battery, that being 5000 as opposed to the OnePlus's 5400 milliamp hour cell. 3rd place, we have the Vivo X100 Pro, which once again has a bigger battery than the Samsung, same size as the OnePlus, 5400 milliamp hours, 9 hours 45 minutes screen on time. Second, we have the iPhone. Usually this guy comes in first. 10 hours and 24 minutes is still incredible screen on time with the smallest battery capacity over here. But first place, the crown goes to the Honor Magic 6 Pro. Largest battery over here, but using the new silicon carbon battery tech. 11 hours and 3 minutes. A flagship Android phone in 2024 has broken the 11-hour barrier. But you also have to factor in temperature. And when it comes to temps, the iPhone has this covered because it was a lot cooler than any other device here, with the Xiaomi peaking at the highest, the 14 Ultra that is, and not far behind that was the Xiaomi 14. Now if you take a look below all these devices, you can see the first times tested. So the S24 Ultra only dropped by 10 minutes of screen on time compared to the first time tested 3 months ago. The OnePlus 12 dropped by around 20 minutes this time around. The Vivo dropped by a noticeable amount, which is a little bit disappointing. And the iPhone dropped by a little bit too, and that's probably because of software optimizations with the new updates. Now, if you take a look at their predecessor results just below that, the iPhone 14 Pro Max got just under 10 hours, so we've seen an improvement there. I didn't test out the Vivo X90 Pro, so the X80 Pro with a smaller battery did it in 7 hours and 17 minutes, so a huge leap over here. The OnePlus 11 with a smaller battery once again increased this time by around an hour. The Honor Magic 5 Pro's best time was 9 hours and 33 minutes, so 11 hours has seriously knocked that one out the park. 8 hours and 54 minutes on the S23 Ultra, so we've definitely seen an improvement there. The Xiaomi 13 Ultra got the exact screen on time in my battery drain test as the 14 Ultra has. And since I didn't test out the Xiaomi 13, comparing it to the 13 Pro with a slightly larger battery, this was actually on par with that. But now, of course, if all of these devices use the same silicon carbon tech and increase their battery capacity to the Honor's massive 5600 mAh cell, the iPhone would place first with more than 13 hours. And now this is based on their milliamp hour per minute readings, as you can see in the middle of each device, with the iPhone having the best milliamp hour per minute reading because it has the smallest battery, and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has the worst. The Honor would then bump down to second place. Third place, the Samsung would jump ahead of the Vivo with almost 11 hours, and the Vivo would slightly increase but be in fourth. The OnePlus would stay the same at fifth place but slightly increase its time. The Xiaomi 14 would stay in sixth place and seriously increase its time, and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, even with that large battery, would still stay in seventh and only get just over 8 hours, which is worse than almost all of the other devices here. But overall, I'm impressed with all of them. Over 7 hours of screen on time is incredible, and I am seriously impressed with the Honor Magic 6 Pro. So stay tuned for more videos on that and on all of these devices for that matter. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as I did, watching all of these phones drop from 100 to 0%. This is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.